All right, everyone. Very good morning, very good evening. Welcome to this Oracle RAC Administration Workshop demo sessions. Uh, I think we already passed 4 minutes as per the schedule. Good time to start now. Right. So with that, quickly get into my notepad here. These are going to be two demo classes today and tomorrow. Uh, for the today's session, I'm going to start with the introduction about myself, followed by course curriculum, course content, and course registration and the course fees, along with the course duration and course timing. And followed by, we'll be covering some of the concepts on this particular rack, like standalone versus rack, how you can identify, and then what are the file system, which are files are saved, which files are not saved, and what are your CRD files in respect to rack and with respect to standalone, and what are the installation process, how different this standalone installation and rack installation and the rack architectures. These are like 4 to 5 topics or content we're gonna briefly discuss today. And in tomorrow's session, we'll continue with the further on the this demo session. So we'll start with the GI or clusterware startup sequences, and then we'll try to understand why or what are these clusterware services, what are these ASM services, what is this grid, and in comparison with my standalone database. Do I have the same startup or same process or same sequence of database startup or the cluster startup as compared with your standalone and as compared with your RAC database? We'll try to understand that in tomorrow's session. And followed by what is ASM versus database? Why we need ASM? And without ASM, can I run my RAC database or the standalone database? We'll try to understand that. And followed by types of databases and any other extra topics we can plan it in our tomorrow's session. Right. Without any further delay, let's get into the introduction. Meantime, guys, like everyone, you are allowed to unmute yourself whenever I'm explaining any concept or any particular content. You have any questions, queries, it may be related to that particular topic, or it may be related to your course curriculum or course duration or the course timing or any concerns. You can feel free to unmute yourself and talk because it's our like live interactions. Uh, you can free to unmute yourself and then ask any questions or queries. At the same times, I'll be watching the chat window here, and you can post your queries on this particular chat box here. I'm gonna respond back on that particular query, right? So that's how today and tomorrow it's gonna be conducted. Right. Quickly, I'll start with the introduction. This is Malik here, Malik Arjun. You can call me Malik or Malik Arjun. So I'll be having around 15 plus years of experience in this particular Oracle journey. With this 15 years of experience, I worked in various organizations and various environments like e-commerce, finance, and insurance sectors as a core Oracle database administrator. So core Oracle database administrator means like I am end-to-end support for many customers. Started my journey with my college graduation as a Oracle junior Oracle DBA, followed by senior Oracle DBA, and the team lead, followed by infrastructure lead or infrastructure admin, and followed by RAC expert, data guard expert, golden gate expert, and Oracle Exata engineering system. So this throughout journey of my 15 years, I worked various products by Oracle. Your Oracle database, Oracle RAC, Oracle Golden Gate, and Oracle e-business suites, and Oracle OBI, and Oracle Exadata, Oracle Supercluster, Oracle Exalogic, and Oracle ODA, Oracle JDLRA. So and Oracle Cloud, right? So Oracle is a giant, like they have so many products inbuilt, and it is DBA, it is individual, responsibilities or individual interest to expand your knowledge on the various products. So once you start working on different products within the Oracle, so you'll become a you'll become an expert. You'll become an infrastructure lead. So if you are going on any customer infrastructure setup from the scratch, you should be able to understand how the database connection to the application and how the your three-tier architecture works, and you should be able to build from the scratch to set up your entire data center. And in order to do any data center migration, some customer may give a project that's a huge project, like do the entire data center build, the new data center build, or to migrate entire data center from one location to other location. So in order to do that one, you should be able to handle, you should be able to have experience on all these areas, so that you can able to communicate with the business or end users, and intelligently plan for the downtime. That all comes based upon experience and based upon how varieties of products you worked on this particular Oracle domain, right? So having said that, Oracle is my primary domain and primary skills, and I am with Oracle from this entire 15 years. So with that, I have not limited my knowledge with only Oracle product. I do have my secondary skills. I'm good at DevOps. I know Kubernetes, .NET, and Jenkins, and so many other things like Perl script and Python script and Shell script. So these are part of your DevOps. And if you good at that DevOps part, so you can intelligently build some automation script where you can incorporate those DevOps skills into your database day-to-day activities. As a DBA, whatever day-to-day activities you are manually doing it, manually monitoring task you're doing it. So you can write with the help of those DevOps script. You can write your own automation script and you can do your day-to-day activities, monitoring activities, or it may be patching, or it may be upgradation. All those activities you can write a automation script and you can incorporate in your day-to-day activities. So that is one of the advantages. So DevOps is my other secondary skills, and along with that, uh, Oracle database is not only database what I know. Along with that, I learned other database technologies as well. So I'm good at MS SQL, Microsoft MS SQL. I'm good at MySQL. I'm good at PostgreSQL, and also I'm good at IBM DB2. And also I worked on SAP HANA database. It's a SAP product, so SAP database, special database. So I worked on SAP database as well. So these are my secondary database skills. So I worked on all these products, and I know how to do this cross-platform from PostgreSQL to Oracle or Oracle to PostgreSQL. So once you are strong at one particular database, so you have to start expanding your knowledge with the other varieties of database flavors, so that you can easily handle your any data center build from the scratch, or any data center migration from one location to other location, right? So these are my secondary database skills along with my primary Oracle skills. And at the same time, I also worked on the application front. For example, I worked on uh, EBS, Enterprise Business Suites. Again, that's a Oracle product. I worked on OBI, Oracle OBI product. That's again application side. And I worked on Oracle PeopleSoft, Oracle Siebel. Again, those are application side. So these are my application front, knowledge, where I worked on couple of years for one or two customers that helped me for infrastructure level, how we can build and how we can plan it, and how we can integrate with the Oracle databases, right? So that's my application front. And at the same time, the other secondary skills apart from this Oracle word and Oracle technologies and database, I have worked on Informatica admin. I have worked on Informatica admin. I know end-to-end Informatica implementation, design, modeling, and also we used in my past, I used for Erwin modeling tool, and for one of the insurance company, we designed their entire architecture. We designed their entire uh, databases, entire applications, and we integrated their application with our Oracle Exadata. And also we redesigned their legacy system into modern database design using Erwin modeling tool, right? Along with some of the business BI guys who have given ideas and all. So these are like all about my journey. Started way back 15 years back after my graduation, and then started with the various organizations, with the various markets and various customers, where I have worked on many of the Oracle products and outside of Oracle products. And if somebody asked me what is my primary skills, of course, my primary skills is Oracle. I am good at Oracle, and they're going to be continue to be Oracle forever. And at the same times, since you are growing and since you are having more and more experience, and it is your responsibility to expand your knowledge, learn the other products, and expand your skills with other areas like DevOps, by like cloud, and like other products or application side, so that once you're strong in these particular areas, you can work as an infrastructure lead, you can work as an architect, and where you can handle the entire data center migration projects, entire data center build, or any higher level activities, right? It may be like your database upgradation or database migration from on-premises to CI cloud, or it may be from one cloud vendor to other cloud vendor. It may be anything. So once you good at these particular areas, you can handle any kind of project, right? Right. So that's about me. If we, if you can allow me, I can talk whole day about me, because I'm passionate about talk about myself, because it's for everyone proud moment. If somebody asked you, tell me about yourself and what are your achievement, so you should be feel proud, and you should always be energetic and enthusiasm to tell about yourself. Right. It all comes about how much you practice and how confident you are, and then what are the areas of expertise you work, so that day by day, if you expand your knowledge, obviously you can get that much of confident level, right? Right. So with that, never the delay, I can quickly jump on if no questions and queries to my next topic, that will be course curriculum. Right. So already uh, talked about this course curriculum in our announcement, but still I can briefly explain. So these are the two demo classes what we're conducting today and tomorrow, 1st April and 2nd April, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. IST, 2 hours today and 2 hours tomorrow. That will be 10:30 p.m. EST to 12:30 a.m. EST for Eastern time. And again, this is the Zoom what we connected so far. Right, so let's quickly go on the course curriculum link here. Right. So in this course curriculum, I can directly jump on this course content, course curriculum here. We'll start with the introduction to the clusterware when we start our actual class. Right before the course curriculum, let me quickly talk about the uh, course duration, so that we'll jump on this course curriculum here. Right. So the course duration is here. So it's a weekend batch. It's only on Saturday and Sunday. So if I can go here, first and second are the demo classes, followed by 8th April is the one we are going to start the actual class. So weekend batch, only Saturday, Sunday is the classes. The timing is 8 a.m. IST to 12 p.m. IST, 4 hours on Saturday and 4 hours on Sunday. So 10:30 p.m. EST to 2:30 a.m. EST, 4 hours on EST, like Saturday and Sunday. That will be 10:30 to 2 a.m. That's on Eastern time. So that's your actual class timings on weekends, Saturday and Sunday. And the course is starting on 8th of April, 8th of April, followed by 15th of April. These are the weekend, 8th weekend, 15th weekend, 22nd weekend, 29th weekend, and followed by 6th weekend here. And let's go here, May 6th weekend and 13th weekend. So the course duration is going to be like 6 weekends, 8 hours in 1 week, 4 hours on Saturday and 4 hours on Sunday, 8 hours in 1 week. So it will be like 6 weekend we're going to cover. And the course fees, of course, it's a paid training. It's a 15K Indian rupees. That pretty much comes around 185 US dollar. And again, this is a purely 19C Oracle versions. And these are like live classes on the via Zoom session. Right. So that's about the course durations, course timings, and the mode of classes. And whoever registered for this particular course, they will be added to a dedicated WhatsApp group. And any questions, any queries will discuss in that particular WhatsApp group, so that it will be benefited to all the students who are registered for the course. Because whatever the questions you have, it the same questions might be other guy might be having it. So if you can interact or post or ask questions, queries in that particular WhatsApp group, That will be helpful for many students. So that's a dedicated WhatsApp group only for the registered students. So we'll discuss any questions, queries, or any challenges. We're gonna post it in that particular group, and whenever you're gonna stuck, so we'll jump on a Zoom session, and then we'll get clear that particular blocker. Right. So WhatsApp group is the one for all the questions or queries during the sessions or after the sessions, and that particular group will be there for forever. And you can ask any questions, queries even after the courses or even completion of your courses. And even if you are working and you are stuck with any particular task in your work environment, you can post the questions over there. Anybody can answer on that. If not, I'll be there to help you or answer those particular questions or queries. Right, that's about the course durations, course timing, and the um, you know course fees. Right, let's jump on the course curriculum now. The course curriculum will start with the introduction about the clusterware. So it's all about clusterware. So what is clusterware? What is standalone versus RAC? What are the networking involved in clusterware? And how I can start my clusterware, how I can start from the scratch to understand this clusterware concept. And clusterware architecture, again, how we're going to build your rack or ASM or clusterware or grid infrastructure. So there are many words. Often we get confused. What is clusterware? What is grid infrastructure? What is ASM? What is my so many things. So these are like your different um, areas. Like you need to understand all this clusterware, all this grid infrastructure, all this ASM, all these rack databases from the scratch, so that you will have a confident level, right? So that's your clusterware architecture. Will start from that. And once you understand the basics of this clusterware and the clusterware architecture, and we'll try to build our own cluster, own grid infrastructure. We'll start with the Linux installation configuration, and we'll start with the networking setup on that particular Linux. It may be your DNS, your maybe public IP, VIP, scan IP, shared disk. And once we understand about the networking and the disk and the partitions, and we'll start with the installation of my clusterware. That will be my grid infrastructure installation. Once the clusterware or the grid infrastructure is installation done, we'll start with the Oracle database installation. That's a 2-node RAC database installation. So once the RAC database installation done, so this is very critical. So this chapter number 1 to 6, that is very critical, because you're going to start with your core fundamental foundation. Once you're able to understand, once you're able to set up, once you're able to go in deep dive about all this network, shared storage, ASM, grid infrastructure, RAC, clusterware. So you should be able to catch up anything on the grid infrastructure level, anything on the cluster level, anything at the database level. So that's a very much core fundamental foundation you should be able to understand. You should be able to do a installation or the setup or the configuration from the scratch by your own. That will make you more confident for the further classes, right? And then we'll start with the that this part of your ASM database creation. We'll start with the ASM understanding. So now you've done your entire clusterware setup, including your ASM database and grid infrastructure. Again, I'm using these words: clusterware, grid infrastructure, ASM, RAC databases. You might be having a lot of doubts on these particular keywords if you're new, or if you already work, but still you might be having a lot of confusion. How can I correlate this clusterware? How can I correlate this ASM? How can I correlate this grid infrastructure? Right. So these are like frequently used keywords, and if you are new, you might be having a lot of questions on this. If you are already worked, but you don't know how to correlate all of these terminologies. So this probably we're going to explain more details once we start our actual classes. And on a frequently and regular basis, the moment we use these keywords, you become familiar about these terminologies. Don't worry on that part as of now. So we'll start with this ASM understanding, because when it comes to RAC, when it comes to clusterware, when it comes to ASM, it's all about the ASM storage, how we're going to manage your ASM storage. So we'll try to understand ASM architecture versus my database architecture, how my database and ASM will correlate and will talk to each other, will communicate each other. That all part will understand as part of my ASM architecture. And ASM administration. ASM administration is nothing but your storage administration. How you're going to monitor your ASM disk groups, ASM disks, how you're going to add the disk, drop a disk, how you're going to create a disk groups with the different redundancies, normal, high, or external, and all those things. We'll talk about this in ASM classes. And followed by your clusterware RAC database administration like CRCTL versus SRCTL, and restarting your clusterware, and that's a startup sequence, restarting your database, rebooting your cluster nodes, and what are your cluster component, your cluster services, your local services, your OLR, OCR, your voting disk, your scan IPs, VIPs, cluster IPs, public IPs, and cluster resources for database level or the cluster level, and followed by your CRD, your database files, your control files, 3D log files, and your arcalog files, your data files, your table spaces, and how they are gonna different in standalone and RAC, and your backups and recovery technologies, how I can do RMAN backups and recovery technologies, and where I can take it. You have 4 node cluster database where I'm going to take my RAC database backup, node 1, node 2, node 3, or on all the 4 nodes. So many internal things about the backups and recoveries. And the listeners, in when it comes to standalone, anyone can work and anyone can understand easily, because it's just a single listeners and the connection happens to that particular single listener. But when it comes to clusterware or the RAC, you have minimum 5 to 6 listeners, your ASM listener and your database listener, your scan listener, your local listener, your ASM net listener, and there's so many listeners, and how my connections will work in case of RAC, how this failure will work in my RAC. So all those things will be discussed here, and followed by multi-tenant architecture, very important. uh, Oracle has redesigned their entire architecture. As of 11G, it's a normal database and normal architecture. And starting with the 12C onwards, Oracle came up with this multi-tenant architecture, that is CDB and PDB. So this is as of 12C. Whenever you're installing your 12C database, you have option to create as a normal database, right? Your normal database, or you can create as a multi-tenant database. So in 12C, you have that option. In 18C, you have again option that normal database or multi-tenant database. Again in 19C, you have that option normal database and multi-tenant database. You have a two architecture. In 11G, it's all about normal architecture. In 12C onwards, it's all about multi-tenant architecture. When you're installing this 12C, 18C, and 19C, it's gonna ask you what architecture you want, whether you want to create it as a normal database or whether you want to create it as a multi-tenant architecture. But whereas in 21C onwards, there is no normal database architecture. It's all about multi-tenant architecture. So it's a must for everyone, each DBA, to understand and learn a multi-tenant architecture. That's a CDBs and PDBs starting with 12C onwards. So once you learn this and going forward on 18C, 23rd C, that's a higher versions of Oracle. So it's all about multi-tenant architecture. So we'll deep dive on this multi-tenant architecture, and we'll understand how I can create, how I can administrate my CDBs and PDBs, how I can connect to my CDBs and PDBs, how I can configure my listeners for my PDBs and CDBs, how I can understand my TNS connections to my PDBs and CDBs, and how I can clone my PDBs from one CDB to other CDB or within the same CDB. So along with architecture, we're gonna talk about all this. Right, followed by ACFS, a very brilliant feature. Most of the customer who uses Oracle RAC, so they're gonna get this ACFS, right? And there's a different types of databases: standalone database, Oracle Restart database, Oracle RAC database, Oracle RAC one node database. So we'll talk about different types of database. Along with that, how we can relocate these RAC one node services, RAC one node database instances. We'll talk on this particular chapter number 18. Chapter number 19 is about patching. Very important. Patching is going to be one of the common activity for most of the DBAs. Um, Again, when it comes to clusterware, when it comes to RAC, there are various components to patch. You have to patch your grid, you have to patch your database, your grid home, your database home, and your database. You are going to patch three components: grid home, database home, and database. And then how you're going to patch it? You're going to patch using a manual method, OPatch, and you're going to go with the automated patch method, that's OPatch Auto. Any one of these tools, we're going to use it for the patching. I'm going to patch my GI, I'm going to patch my Oracle Home, and I'm going to patch my database. So is these three components, how I'm going to patch it? I'm going to patch it with a complete downtime. That's called non-rolling. I'm going to patch with a rolling fashion. That's a node 1 followed by node 2 followed by node 3 followed by node 4. If you have 4 node rack, you're going to patch one node at a time. That's called a rolling patching. And hybrid patching, like you're going to patch 2 node at a time in case of 4 node clusterware. So you can follow any one of that rolling, non-rolling, or hybrid mode of patching. And how I can minimize the downtime for the patching, so all will be discussed over here. And upgradation, so that's a very important task. Again, I can say it's not a daily task for the DBS. It's a one-time activity. Based upon your project, you're going to get this activity. That's upgradation. How you're going to upgrade your database from 11G to 12G, or from 11G to 19G, or from 12G to 19G, from lower version to higher version. How you're going to do the database upgrade? So as we can see, we have around 5 to 6 methods of database upgradation. So using SQL command line, dbupgrade.sql, you're going to use it, or using a Perl script, you're going to do the database upgrade, or using a shell script, you're going to do the database upgrade, or using a DBUA, that's a graphical user interface, the GUI mode, you're going to do the database upgrade, or you have a 19C new feature called auto upgrade, you're going to use that auto upgrade tool, you can do a database upgrade. So various methods, we're going to talk about that database upgrade, particularly for the RAC database. RAC database with the data guard, how we're going to do the database upgrade. So RAC database with the data guard, how we're going to do the patching. So all will be discussed in details of that particular topic. Right, followed by two more topic. That's a node addition and node removal. Right now you have a 2 node cluster, and if you want to upgrade it to 3 node, or you want to add 2 more node, 4 node cluster, how you're going to do that node addition? And right now you have 4 node rack cluster, and you want to remove one of the node. How we can do that on node addition and node removal? And followed by converting your database. You have right now standalone database, you want to convert it as a RAC. And what are the various methods? You can use a DBCA to convert, or you can use a VM enterprise manager to convert, or you can use a rconfig tool to convert. There's so many tools you can use it for converting your standalone architecture to RAC architecture. That's about your RAC conversion. And followed by, we'll talk about resume and cover letter preparation. So that's about my own resume. I'm going to take it as an example. So I'm going to talk about how you can write your resume, how you can write your cover letter, what is this cover letter and resume, how it looks, and what are the content it should be. So we're going to talk about that with a live example of my own resume. And because that's a very important aspect. So once after you learn this particular course, your motto or intention should be get a new job or a new opportunity. So that all depends upon how strong is your resume and cover letter. So we're going to talk about some important points and the tips on how we're going to write your resume, or how we're going to build your resume and cover letter. And followed by interview questions. Again, this is a generic interview question we'll discuss at the end of the course. But throughout this course, each and every topic will be discussing a commonly asked questions and answers. So at the end, we're gonna brief everything in one, so that it'll gonna brief entire course in one shot. Right. And at the end, along with that, there's a mock interview. Again, it is subjected to everyone interest. It's not mandatory. If you're interested, we'll be conducting a mock interview between you and me, one-to-one. It's kind of a real-time interview where you can feel that you're having a real-time one-to-one interview with organization. So this is a mock interview. You have to register for the mock interview, and I'll be connecting with you one-to-one, and then we'll be having a discussion, kind of a real-time interview. Right. So that's about the course curriculum or course content. Any questions so far on this particular course curriculum, or the course content, or the course timings?
Yeah, hi, Malika. So the course will be in that May 7, right?
Come again?
No, this course will be complete at May 7, right?
Yes, that's correct. 6th weekend. We'll start at 8th,
Yeah.
15th, 23rd, 29th, 6th, and 13th of May. Yeah, that's the final 6th weekend. Yes.
Okay, and so you are going to start with which release and which platform you are going to install
It,
this one?
it's a Linux platform and Oracle Enterprise Linux 7, and it's a Oracle database 19c.
Yeah, sure. And regarding this CDP, PDP, we are going to give CDP, PDP knowledge also. So, is this enough? We need to learn anything about CDP, PDP outside, or
No,
else it is enough.
this course is more than enough. This course, each and every topic, whatever we're covering, it is
Yeah.
for from the scratch, including your CDB, PDB concept. If you're going here, it will be complete understanding. We're going to start with architecture and we're going to go with each end-to-end administration here. And the same
Yeah.
thing goes for your ASM as well. So if you say, I don't have any ASM knowledge prior to this course, don't worry. We're going to start with the ASM architecture and we'll understand the ASM and we'll follow with the complete ASM administration. So you no need to have a prior ASM knowledge or the prior knowledge about your CDBs and PDBs. It will be part of this particular course.
Yeah, and one more, Malik, regarding, do you have any session for data guard setup for RAC databases in this session?
There is a one session we're going to conduct along with this course. We're going to show you like two node to two node data guard setup.
Yeah, and regarding this node eviction also.
That will be part of this course. You no need to ask that one. If your RAC course means node eviction and how you're going to troubleshoot and what
Yeah,
is your disk heartbeat, what is your network heartbeat, and
yeah.
who is responsible for node eviction, all will be covered as part of this course.
Okay, thank you, Malik. Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right.
Malik, like one doubt, like will you share recordings of the sessions also, like what are the sessions?
Right. So every day these sessions will be recorded, include in fact this demo session also will be recorded and it will be uploaded to our Google Drive. Once you register for this particular course and you will be part of our WhatsApp group, will be added to WhatsApp group and will be granted access to all the course materials and you can refer them from the Google Drive. For example, if I want to show you our previous batch recording here, I can quickly show you here. Right. So every day, in fact, recordings will be available and that will be saved, uploaded to Google Drive on the same day. So you can access it. So this is your database course materials and you're going to have the access on all the course PPTs, all the course workbook and lab exercise and all the ready VMs. So if you can see, there is already ready VMs with a two node rack, all will be uploaded. With a empty rack, all will be uploaded. If you want to set up by your own, you can set up. Or if you want to use already ready VMs, 19C rack setup with ASM and database, 19C rack setup with ASM and database using a grid user and Oracle user, 19C rack setup, uh, only ASM setup, 19C two node rack with ASM setup. You can set up your database on top of that and your 12C rack setup with the only ASM and you can upgrade this 12C rack setup to 19C. So you can use this ready lab based upon you're doing a upgradation, you're doing a patching or you're doing a migration, whatever activity you want to do it, you can just use this ready labs. First, you practice your own setup from the scratch. And once you're confident enough and you're comfortable in the installation and setup and configuration, by any chance, if your setup crashed, you no need to worry. You can just download this setup and you can use them. Right. So that's one thing.
Malik, is it possible to have the links to the Google Drive ahead of time so we can read ahead?
Right. That's what I'm coming here. These are your course material. Whatever here you're seeing, this is about the course material, your course PPTs, your lab exercise, your ready labs, your softwares, and whatever needed for this particular course. And at the same time, if you want to go with that, this is your, wait a second, this is your the previous batch recording. So if I can copy this link and open here. So once you register for this particular course, you will be getting access on this particular Google Drive, where you can see a previous batch recordings. So what we're doing at the same time, I'm going to uploading the demo videos Along with that, I'll be uploading all the commands, whatever we are writing, whatever commands I'm firing on my particular system here. At the end of the course, I'll be taking all the command notepad output, and I'll be uploading along with the particular demo sessions, along with the particular schedule session, and the particular notepad, whatever I'm firing the command in my laptop or my servers, will be uploaded in the Google Drive. You can use those recordings while you are watching, while you are refreshing the videos after the end of the course, end of the session. You can refer the video as well as the command together so that you can copy paste the command so that you can practice it once the session is over. Right. So all the sessions will be recorded on the same day and uploaded immediately after the class. Today, I'm going to complete the session. I'll upload the recording into the Google Drive and you can access it. By any reason, if you're not able to join the today's session, the recordings will be available immediately after the session. You can watch them. Right. That's one thing. That's for ongoing classes. And since this is a weekend courses, only Saturday, Sunday, once you completed this first weekend, and if you don't want to wait for another 5 days for the next weekend, so you will be granted access to our previous batch recordings. And you can start watching by your own. It's kind of a fast track so that the moment we go on the next weekend, so we'll be ready by all the questions and queries. You can ask more questions, more queries, and you can clarify all your doubts, right? And these previous batch recordings help you for in advance. You can get ready and you can ask more questions and queries and clarify your all the doubts. And also at the same time, these are live interactions, and in each and every previous batch also, there will be a lot of questions will be asked by many students. And if you listen these particular recordings, they're gonna help you more on these particular questions, right? So you might have not having that particular question. These are like live interactions. Many students might have asked many questions. So you can get those questions and answers by referring these previous batch recordings, right? So that's about the course where you're going to access from the Google Drive, all the course materials along with the previous batch recording, as well as this ongoing batch recordings, all will be available. And these are lifetime accessible recordings. And you can, these links are permanent links. You can use it for any time, no restriction at all. And in fact, in this particular recordings, there's no restrictions or no conditions. You just right click and you can just download it. They're going to allow you to download locally on your laptop, no restriction. All these recordings, all these PPTs, workbook, lab exercise, everything you can download it. In fact, in your own laptop, no restriction on that. Right. Any questions so far, guys?
Yeah, Malik, installation and configuration, will we do parallelly or after the class?
After the class. Yeah.
Okay.
And if you're stuck with any
Malik?
installation, I'll
Yeah.
jump on a Zoom session and then help you on that.
Okay, one to one, right?
Malik, go back to the link to Google Drive. Have you already sent out to us, or you will?
Not yet. After the demo session, probably on Monday, I'm going to share it. Whoever the register, like few guys already registered, they're all part of the course, part of the WhatsApp group, and already given access to the Google Drive for a few of the folks, but who joined recently, like a day or 2 days back, I had to give the access.
Okay, yeah, because I have not received it and I like to read ahead of time. So if
Right,
you can
right.
send to students after the demo, thank you.
Yeah, I'll do that. Right.
So access links will be given through WhatsApp or the email, Malik?
For your Gmail ID. So I'm gonna
Okay.
give the access. That's the permanent links. You can access it in any browser or your mobile or anywhere you can access it.
Okay, I'll receive it in my Gmail. So I should look out in my Gmail, not in the WhatsApp, right?
Right. Both. You'll get in WhatsApp as well as Gmail.
Okay.
Hi, Malik.
Yep.
Sir, do you cover how to manage grid log files, like listen log files?
Yes, it's a part of the course. That's administration. It's one of your daily activities. How you're going to manage your read logs, how you're going to manage your RAC log, and if FRA is full, what you will do.
Like listener log files, it's actually they are generating too much in my
Everything,
end.
not
Okay.
only listener log, everything will be covered as part of this course. These are your your administrative activities, how we're going to manage your trace files, alert log files,
Yes, yes,
your clusterware log files,
yes.
your redo log files, your archive log files, your listener files, your the cluster services. There are a lot of how we're going to manage your ADR. Basically, your ADR directory contains everything: your trace files, alert log files, TRM files, your listener log files, your clusterware log files, your database alert log files, how we're going to manage them, how we're going
Okay.
to truncate them, how we're going to move to your backup location. So it's a part of your normal activity, will be covered as part of this course.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
And Malik, in this part of course, do you cover any performance related issues?
No, performance related basics will be covered as and when we discuss these topics, whatever I just showed you, but purely you're looking for performance tuning specific, so those will not be covered. That should be a separate course.
Okay, basics you are going to cover.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi Malik, I have a few questions. I think this might not be the context of the course, but like, do Oracle DBAs have on-site opportunities? Because like I have been working for 2 to 3 years and haven't seen people who are like or DBAs are getting on-site opportunities compared to other development related platforms.
So DBA is a lastly recognized. Very less opportunities if you're looking for on-site, because on-site opportunity, what you need to understand, you need to interact with the client. So in order to interaction and all, who are going to take a lead? It's your developers. It may be your Java, the application, whatever you're supporting may be Java. The application, whatever you're working, it may be .NET, or it may be PHP or HTML. Your developer, the one who can interact with the end client, and they can take the whatever the feedback, they can take whatever the changes they want it on the UI level. So mostly developer, the one who can get the on-site opportunities. The DBAs are very rare. And having said that, when the DBAs will get opportunities, so whenever there's a new infrastructure they're building, so there should be a DBA need in order to understand their entire infrastructure. And whenever they're doing a data center migration, there's a DBA need on the data center to understand the architecture. So any kind of these major activities where it's a data center level changes, migration or upgradation, or it may be your database is moving from one database to other database, for example, PostgreSQL to Oracle, or it may be your on-premises to cloud. Those kind of a project where DBA get a chance to go to on-site, but otherwise it's a very less opportunities for the DBAs, right? So that's one thing. And when the DBA will get opportunities, so if you learn some tools like Golden Gate is one of the very brilliant tool. If you are Golden Gate admin and you learned about Golden Gate, there will be a lot of opportunities for the DBAs in US and in Gulf countries, because many US customers or many Gulf countries, Gulf customer, they are using Golden Gate replication for most of their banking application to heterogeneous data transfer between Oracle to some other databases, right? So if you learn those kind of tools, and you'll get opportunities. And along with the database admin skills, if you learned about application side skills, for example, your e-business enterprise suites, Oracle e-business enterprise suites, or Oracle OBI. So these are your application level products. And once you are database admin plus your EBS admin or OBI admin, then you will get a lot of opportunities for the on-site. Right? That's a answer for your query.
Malik,
Thanks, Malik. I have one more question. In our environment right now, apart from Oracle, we are also supporting NoSQL technologies like Cassandra, MongoDB,
Right.
Redis, as well as PostgreSQL. So, but we are not doing much. We are just supporting them. We are doing some health checks, simple health checks, not much. But if we add this to our resume, will it add more advantage, or like since these are basic checks, like they won't acknowledge these things in the interviews?
No, they're gonna depend, right? Like your primary skill is Oracle. Learning this secondary database is a good, but you are primarily looking for database as your main product. So in your interview, they'll be concentrating on the database, not on the secondary skills. And if you're there is a particular project which needs only MongoDB or Cassandra or CockroachDB. So there we need end-to-end support on this. So as a DBA, once you learned about Oracle, these databases are nothing. You can easily learn it in a week or 10 days of time, each end-to-end support for these databases. Because your database, Oracle database is a huge. So once you are strong enough and you already learned Oracle database, the database understanding or day-to-day activities are very easy. For example, if you take about PostgreSQL, just a single RPM. If you want to install your database, you need to spend the entire one day. But if you want to install PostgreSQL, it's just a single RPM installation. In order to do a database data guard setup from primary to standby, you need to at least spend a week time to do a setup and monitor it. But in case of PostgreSQL, within 30 minutes, you can just do a replication from primary to standby. So you no need to worry about that. So once you know the basics, you can within a week, you can understand end-to-end architecture or end-to-end administration for these databases.
Thanks, Malik. And regarding
do you also-
certifications, so like has the new certification course like they have changed the pattern? It seems it's more like real-time scenarios for
Will be
OCA and
covered
OCP.
again. Will be covered at the end of the course. All your certifications, all your resume writing, cover letter, everything will be covered. And OCA and OCP is your basic administration. You have to learn for the database, not the RAC. RAC has a separate certificate.
Thanks, Malik.
Right.
Malik, just one quick question. Do you also train in Golden Gate because you talked about Golden Gate?
Not at the moment. Probably in upcoming days, I can have a course content, but not.
Okay, because in
right.
the blogspot, I am not seeing under the trainings tab, there is no Golden Gate topic
Yeah.
mentioned over there actually.
Right. Yeah, I can come up with that. Right now, no training.
Hello, hi, Malik.
Yep.
So do you running any course on Golden Gate right now?
No.
Okay.
No. Yeah.
One more question, Malik. During this curriculum, RAC curriculum, in the VIP failover part, would you be able to cover the practical live connections, how
Right.
it works in VIP failover?
Everything will be covered at the live.
Okay. Okay.
How your session is going to fail over from one node to other node. Only the select queries will be failed over and the DML queries will not fail over. All those will be demonstrated with the live example.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Malik, regarding this, except this RAC, are you running any other courses?
Right now, we're taking database courses and the RAC courses. And these are the
Okay.
only two courses I'm running it. And in future, you may follow my blog. Will be announced very soon.
Yeah. Okay.
Malik, I have not registered yet. So should I register from YouTube link?
Okay. Good question. Like what you can do. So if you can go to my blog, probably I'm gonna say it in my blog. If you go to my blog, any page, you have announcement and you can go to your more information here. And if you can go to this announcement on the database course training here, so you're going to get into, probably I can share this in the chat here in the chat box. Probably you can refer that. That's the one thing. You can go to this particular blog and you can register with using this link. So you want to go with the 1st April batch, go on this registration link and you can register it. I'm just going to ping that one here as well. So you can go to my blog and register for the course. That's one thing. Or these are the two links. I'm gonna probably, I already posted here in the chat. You can refer from there. Or you can, the easiest way is like you can ping me on my WhatsApp number. So this is my WhatsApp number. I can further, or you can email me. I can further help you on that registration process. Right. You can go to my blog and register over there, or you can ping me on my WhatsApp number or my email ID +91 988 616 848. I can guide you further process on the payment or the registration or whatever.
Okay.
Right.
And can you show once how do we can access these videos once the registration is done, Malik?
Right.
Yeah.
That's correct. All right. Any questions, guys, before we get started with the some of the basics understanding?
Yeah, Malik. Yeah, Malik. Can you show us? Can you show us once how we can access once the registration is done?
Right. Yeah, that will be part of the course once the registration is done, and will be showed it during the actual class. Not right now. Just the useful.
Yeah, got it.
Right.
Malik,
So
would it be possible for you to share some document of a wallet or take some session on wallet as well? Or maybe you can share the documents and discuss if any doubt.
Definitely, like, this course curriculum, whatever I mentioned here, it is not only limited, right? So apart from this course curriculum, you might be having a lot of queries on the different topics. For example, you might be having queries on OEM. You might be having a queries on your Golden Gate. You might be having a queries on your wallet. You might be having a lot of queries on your Oracle database licensing. So these are your special topics, and that will be covered at the end of the course based upon how many students are interested, how many students want to be part of that. Because I cannot cover all 100 topics. Like, you might be having wallet request, other guy might be having OEM request. So we'll discuss all together and we'll take few topics as extra topics after end of the course, right? So end of this course, we'll have 1 or 2 sessions and we'll cover all this advanced concept, like it may be a wallet, or it may be OEM, or it may be Golden Gate, or it may be your whatever it is. So those will be taken as a extra topics end of the course, right?
Yeah, thank you.
All right. If no questions on the course curriculum or the course duration or the timing or the fees, the next step will be your registration. Again, as I said, you can go to this blog or you can go to this registration form and you can register for that one. So I can guide you one more time. If you go to my blog and you can go to this first announcement, first link, open in a new tab. And in that, you're going to get this 1st April RAC batch, weekend batch. You can go to that link and you can register for that. That's one thing you can do it. If not, then you can ping me on my WhatsApp number +91 9880 616 848, or you can drop me an email mallikarjun.ramadurg@gmail.com. I can further guide you for the registration and the further the payment process. Once you are interested or once you register, and what next action plan will be, the payment process. So there may be various methods for the payment. I'll be guiding you one-to-one once the registration is done. Right. With that, let's quickly start with the, if no further questions or queries, there are a few questions here in the chat. I can quickly answer that and we'll get started with this 4 topics for today. Like, do you take queries between the sessions or any other day? Yes, as I said, these queries, these are live sessions. You can unmute yourself. You can ask any questions and queries during the class, clarify your questions. And after the class, if you have any questions and queries, immediately post it in our WhatsApp group, because those are the dedicated WhatsApp group only for our students. So you can ask any questions anytime. Anybody can answer in that group, or if no one, I'll be there to answer your queries on that particular group. So always use our WhatsApp group. Don't ping me one-to-one, because whatever the questions you have, it's the same question might be, with the other guy as well. If you use our WhatsApp group, so that can be benefited to many other students, right? That's about the first question. The second questions, do you get the recorded? Right. Yes, I just now answered. These are the lifetime accessible course materials, course recordings, lifetime accessible, and it will be available on our Google Drive for the lifetime. You can access them at any time, or in fact, you can download it into your own laptop or the desktop. No restriction on those recordings or the sessions or those course materials. So which upgrade version? So this is, as I said, it's a 19C Oracle versions, and on the Linux platform, Oracle Enterprise Linux 7 will be dealing with. And regarding upgrade, we'll be upgrading from 11G to 19C or 12C to 19C. we'll be practicing those database upgrades with the various versions and with the various methods, like 5 to 6 upgrade methods. We'll cover like 3-4 upgrade methods. So will you cover a little bit about the performance tuning on RAC? Yes. So will be covered only particular to this particular topic, whatever I just now showed. In that particular topics, is there anything related to performance tuning will be covered. But if you're looking for a particular troubleshooting or not troubleshooting, you are looking for only the performance tuning session, then that way a separate class will be come up with, because performance tuning is not a one task or two tasks. There's hundreds of performance tuning tasks, whether you're tuning a SQL or whether you're tuning a memory or whether you're tuning your wait events or whether you're tuning your locks or latches, various areas. So we'll take 1 or 2 areas, and if anyone interested, we'll take it as extra class on those particular performance tuning factors. Do you manage grid logs? Yes. So already answered for these questions. We manage all the grid logs, not only grid logs, your trace files, TRM files, your alert log files, your listener log files, your all the clusterware log files. How we're gonna manage them, move them, delete them, 1 week back, 2 week back, all will be covered here. Right. So do we cover Oracle ASM UDEV configuration? Yes. So it will be using Oracle ASM libraries. We'll be covering this particular rack using Oracle ASM libraries for a shared disk. Right. And then few more questions. Do you cover, could you provide study materials? Yes, I already answered that. All the study materials, all the PPTs, workbook, lab exercise, recordings, and all the commands, whatever you're executing, everything will be available in the Google Drive. You can refer them. So again, the batch, yeah, it's a only weekend batch. There's no weekday classes because as I said, these are like 4-hour topic. If I start with inflation will take maximum, minimum 3 to 4 hours. I cannot take 1 hour every day and then drag this inflation for a week. So I already had in previous we had this weekday batches Monday to Friday, every 1 hour or 2 hours, but that did not help. So weekend we're gonna take 4 hours on Saturday and 4 hours on Sunday, so that one stretch you will be able to get the flow. Because once I start with inflation, that will like 4 hours of activity. Once I start with your cluster node addition or node removal, again it's a 4 hours of activity. So that's a weekend minimum 4 hours. That's working. So this is around 9th batch we're running. So probably the weekend is good. So weekend 9th batch. So that's working fine. Most of the students are happy. So that's the reason, based upon all the previous batch students, their feedback, and this particular weekend batch, Saturday, Sunday, 4 hours, it's working for us, and we have this strict timing for now. There's no weekday batch as of now. If anything, probably we can follow our blog and then you'll get to know that. But for now, no weekday batches. It's a weekend batch. Right. So that's about all the questions questions in the chat here. Let's get started now, if no questions from anyone. Right. So let's quickly jump on our first topic, that is a simple understanding about standalone versus RAC. So I can quickly get on this particular standalone versus RAC. So standalone and RAC, I'll go for the better understanding here. Right. What exactly is standalone? I think, okay, before this one, let's quickly be clear on this one. One thing. If you want to register for this RAC, your prior database knowledge is mandatory. You should know about the database basics. Your core DBA skills are mandatory. If you are not a DBA, you have not yet worked on the database, then you first go for the database course. Otherwise, your RAC will be too much for you. You will not be able to understand. Right? That's one thing. Your database knowledge, these are like your prerequisites. Right? So these are mandatory. So your prerequisites, DBA knowledge, you should be having that minimal DBA database understanding. That's a must. And the second thing is, you should have minimum of 16 GB RAM in your laptop and 100 GB hard disk, your HDD or SSD, anything. 16 GB RAM, you should have it in your laptop or the desktop, very must. If you don't have it, you just able to listen my classes and you should be able to watch it, but you will not be able to practice it in real time in your own laptop. So you should have, in order to set up a lab, in order to practice it, you should have minimum 16 GB RAM in your laptop and minimum 100 GB hard disk or the SSD disk. You should have it. These are your two bare minimal requirement. You should have it. If you don't have it, then you will not be able to practice it, but you should be able to only listen my course. You should be able to understand it. But when it comes to practical, you will not be able to do it. So these are the two things. One is your basic minimal DBA knowledge is mandatory and your system requirement is mandatory. Otherwise, you'll not be able to set up your lab. Right. It's a good point. Cover it on the fly right away, because I seen it students who register it, but they will come back. I have only 4 GB RAM. Obviously, 4 GB RAM will never ever work for the rack, right? You should have minimum 16 GB. With that, 16 GB is not the hard limit. If you have a more than that, like 24 GB or 32 GB, that's a well and good. You work like you are working on the real time customer environment. If you have a 24 GB or 32 GB RAM, right? That's about the requirement. Now let's get started for this understanding here. Basics of your rack or basics of your standalone. So standalone and the rack, why this rack came into picture? So if you understand here, these are your front end. Your end user can connect using browser URL, Google Chrome or anything. You can connect with the front end. That's your application layer. You can call it as a front end or your client or web or mobile. They can connect with any of these devices. This is called presentation layer or the front end layer. Anything in the 3-tier architecture, we can call it the front end or the presentation layer or the web user or the browser or mobile or web client, anything. The client can connect with any of the devices using that application. For example, take ICICI Bank. In India, ICICI Bank or your HDFC Bank or your whatever. That's a few example. Your insurance companies, the front end, the portal login, or you can say your Facebook, or you can say your Gmail, anything. The front end where you log in. So once you log in with those applications, those will go to application servers, right? It may be having multiple application server or one single application server. That is called the middle tier or middleware or the web server or the web logic or Apache Tomcat. It may be anything. That's your application logic. Here your application logic will work. It may be your banking logic, or it may be insurance, or it may be finance, or it may be anything. So your application logic will be deployed on your application server. All the front end URL will connect to your application server, right? These are like out of our scope. We'll not be worrying about this front end or application server. What as a DBA, what we are worrying from application server to my database. So application server to database is the one as a DBA I'm worried about. There may be 100 users, or it may be 1 million user, or there may be 1,000 users who can connect through front end application. They will go to application server. From there, they're going to connect to my database. And this is my database server. This is my host. So in this particular host, you install your database. So this host may be your Linux, it may be your Windows, or it may be your AX or SUSE Linux, or it may be anything. On this particular server, I install my database, Oracle database. It may be your 11G, or it may be your 12C, or it may be your 19C, or any database version you installed it here. So this is your standalone. In what happens in the standalone, on the server where you install your database, they will be called instance, your database instance. Again, as I said, DBA knowledge is mandatory. If I say instance, the instance is your memory plus background process. So you should be aware of that. Instance is a memory plus background process, which will be running on that particular server. It may be Linux server, Windows server, AX server, whatever the server. There is a memory will be allocated and the background process will be started. That's your instance. All the incoming connections will go to instance. Via instance, they will connect to my database. These are your database. Database means your actual physical files, your data files, your end user business data will be stored under your storage. That's your database. So your instance is running on that server. It's a one-to-one mapping. One instance mapped to one database on that particular one server. It's a one-to-one. If your instance crashed means your memory crashed, database memory crashed, or your database background process crashed. That's your instance crash. Or the host, the server where your instance is running, that server got crashed. Because that's a Linux server or Windows server. It may get crashed due to disk or due to some critical background process. Your server crashed. You will eventually lose all the connections. All these end user connections will not be able to access the data, or will not be able to access the database. Right? That's a complete downtime for your business. That is for your standalone limitation. Standalone server, if there's an instance crash happens, or if there's a server crash happens, nobody can able to access the database. Nobody can able to access the business data, which is under this data files. That's your complete business loss or the business downtime. So when it comes to RAC, same, the front end URL or mobile or desktop or the web client, all will go to applications. This is your application server, and you can say middleware or the application tier or the Apache, WebLogic or Tomcat, anything. From there, they're gonna connect to various server. You have a host, Linux host 1, Linux host 2, Linux host 3. You have 3 hosts, and you have instance 1 running, instance 2 is running, and instance 3 is running. 3 server, 3 instances were running, and all of them are mapped to a single database here. This is your RAC database. And it will help you for HA, high availability. That's one thing. And failover. HA and failover. That's one of the basics advantages of your RAC. What is HA? High availability. Like I have a user 1 connected to my instance 1. User 1 connected to instance 2. I have a user 2 connected to user 2 connected to instance 2. I have a user 3 connected to my instance 3. So in case this instance crash happened or this host crash happened, right? Anything happened here, how I explained here, this instance may crash or your server may crash. If anything happens, the user 1 who connected here, automatically he can fail over to instance 2 or instance 3 based upon the load. Right? So that is automatic feature in RAC. So if you use this, you can call it as a transparent application failover. Transparent application failover, TAF, we can call it. We can, again, we'll explain it in our actual classes in details. TAF, we can call it as transparent application failover. Any user connected to an instance, a particular instance or the host, if that instance or host crashes, that connections will be automatically failed over to any one of the cluster nodes. Right? So that's your HA, high availability. So at any given point of time, you can easily, the end users will be able to connect with a high availability feature. That's one thing. And the second thing is failover. If the user is connected to node 1, if the node 1 crashes, automatically that user will fail over to any other surviving node. That's a failover. That's the second advantage of your RAC. And the third advantage is your load balancing. What is that load balancing? And my application, if it want to connect to my database, if they 3000 users are connected at the same time, and all the 3000 connections will go to instance 1 and this host 1, and your host is not capable of handling 3000 connection, your server will crash. In case of RAC, what happens? The 3000 connections, your cluster where there's a concept called scan, we're going to explain in details. That scan intelligently, these 3000 connections, we're gonna reroute that connections. Okay, 1000 connections go to node 1, 1000 connections go to node 2, and 1000 connections go to node 3. So your scan is smart enough or intelligent enough to reroute all those incoming connections equally on all the nodes, all your cluster nodes. That's your intelligent mechanism of load distributing, load balancing, we can call it as. So that's the job of your scan, right? So this is a simple understanding between your standalone versus RAC. Any questions on this standalone versus RAC? Right. So that's a simple concept. If any questions or queries, you can always, as I said, feel free to unmute or ask your questions or post your questions here while explaining it.
Difference between failover and transparent application failover.
Both are same.
Both are same. Okay.
Yeah. Right. That's about the simple understanding between standalone versus RAC. And the standalone is one instance mapped to one database. And in RAC, one database are mapped with the multiple instances. Those instances are running on multiple servers. Right. The advantage of RAC is your load balancing, your failover, your transparent application failover, or your high availability, so many other features, right? And coming to your basic comparison again further on the standalone versus RAC, if I can go to this slide, just now what I explained. On a server in standalone, one instance, one database. That's fine. And I can install second instance and second database. That's also fine. This is my development database. This is my development database. This is my UAT database, right? I can run two databases, no issues. This is this instance for my development, and this instance is for my test. Yeah, I can run multiple instances and multiple databases on a single server. No issue, no harm on that. How many instances I can run, how many database I can run on a single server, that all depending upon how big is your server is. How much of RAM, how much of CPU, how much of memory, how much of storage the server has it. This server has 1 terabyte of RAM and 10 terabyte of storage and 100 CPUs. That's a huge server. I can install database 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I can have so many databases here, right? So there's no limitation, no restriction. You can install multiple databases on a single server. Multiple instances can run on a single server, right? That's all limited by your capacity, not a limitation by from Oracle. But the problem with this one, if your server has a huge memory and huge storage, that's not going to help. Why? Because if this server itself crashed, your database will not be accessible, right? So it doesn't matter you have a huge memory or huge storage or huge CPU. What matters is how many servers you have it, right? So for example, let's take this here. This server has 300 GB RAM and this server has 1 TB storage. I can have instance 1, instance 2, instance 3. I can give 100 GB each of them. 100 GB on all these 3 instances. I can run 3 databases. 100 GB instance 1, database 1. 100 GB instance 2, memory for database 2. 100 GB instance for 3 and database 3. I can run 3 databases here. But the problem with this is if your server crashed and your database is all be not accessible. So rather than that, what we can do, we can give same 100 GB on this server, 100 GB on this server, 100 GB on this server. 3 server I divided. I have instance 1, instance 2, instance 3. My database is running here. If anyone connected to node 1, they can connect over here. And if this instance goes down or the server goes down, this connection automatically go to second instance. Right? That's your high availability. So the basic fundamental understanding here is on the single server, you can create n number of databases or n number of instances, no limitation. How many database or instance I can create on a host? No limitations. It is all depending upon how big is your server, what's the capacity of your server, right? And the second thing, can I have an instance and database on a different host? Yes, you can have an instance running under your host 1 and your database, these data files can have a separate storage or separate server, or you can have separately, but those should be mounted on this particular server as a NFS or the SAN or NAS. You can have a instance on one server and your data files or the database on the separate server, but you have to mount those mount points on that particular host. Then only your both instance and database will work, right? And a multiple databases to a single instance. I have this DevDB here. I have this TestDB here. Both can I map to this particular single instance? Can I map my database and can I map my both the database 1 and database 2, dev and test, to a single instance? That is not possible. It is like one database should map to multiple instance. Instance 1, instance 2, instance 3, my DevDB is here. So multiple instances can map to single database, but multiple databases cannot map to single instance. One dev database should have at least one instance or multiple instances. I cannot have multiple databases mapped to a single instance. That's not possible. Multiple databases mapped to a single instance. That's not possible. Right. So that's your simple understanding of a RAC versus standalone, and how many instance I can create, how many database I can create. If somebody asked how many instances I can have it for my single database. So instance, you can have many, there's no limitations. I have dev database here. I can have 2 node instances. I can have 3 node instances. I can have 4 node instances. That's your RAC database. And if somebody asked you, can I have multiple databases with a single instance? No, that's not possible. Right. So that's a simple understanding between your single instance versus RAC. So if I can quickly show on my demo here. Right. PS-EF grep SMON. So I have DB2 database here. And if I can take with these two here, I have this host node 1 and host node 2. These are node 1 and node 2, my RAC. These are the 2 node RAC. And this one is my Oracle Lab 1. This is a single node, standalone. These two are my RAC. My instances are running on both the nodes. So if I can go here, my DevDB instance 1 running under this node 1. And if I can go here on the second node, my DevDB instance 2 is running over here. So for this, combining these two database, instance 1, instance 2, instance 1 and running on host 1, instance 2 is running under host 2. These two instances are mapped to DevDB. That's your underlying database, and these are your instances. That's what you can see it over here. You have instance 1, instance 2, DevDB 1, DevDB 2 mapped to your DevDB. And your instance 1 and database 1, that's your standalone on this particular node here. You have a DB2, or you can go to here, this other, they have one more server here. You have grep SMON. Right, so let's go here, lab 2. So on this lab 2 here, I have this a test DB here. It's a only one instance. Your instance name and the database name, both are same here. Instance name is test DB, database name is test DB, both are same here, because it's only 1-to-1 mapping. In case of RAC, DevDB is the database name, and that database name is appended with instance 1 and instance 2, because that's your RAC. RAC has the multiple instances. You cannot have same DevDB instance and DevDB instance. If the client is connecting to a DevDB instance, the connection will go to node 1 or node 2. It will never go, right? So to avoid that confusion, because the client is going to connect to instances, you should have a unique name for your instances, instance 1 and instance 2. Right. So that's a simple understanding how your instances are mapped here. So now I need to access this instance. So I need to do PS-F grep SMON. I should know that this is my instance owned by Oracle user. I need to go to that particular user, SU, switch user, and log into that Oracle user. Right. So now you logged into Oracle user. You were that a root user. Now you change to Oracle user. And very first command you're going to run it is dot space var-env, environment variable. You're going to set it. You're going to ask what is your SID, instance ID. I know this is my instance ID. Node 1 I'm connecting. I'm going to give instance ID as DevDB1. So whereas if I am in other node, RAC node 2, again PS-EF grep SMON, I got DevDB2 instance. I owner is Oracle. I need to do SU Oracle. I need to first go to that particular instance owner. That's Oracle here. And again, I'm going to run that .var-env. Here again, it's asking for SID. What is my SID? I need to give devdb instance 2 here. In node 1, I gave devdb instance 1, but whereas on node 2, I gave devdb instance 2. That's how we need to set the environment. How we can validate env pipeline grep capital vara. The moment you set this env environmental variable, SID is set to devdb2, Oracle base and Oracle home. And the same command env grep vara, if I run it on node 1, so your devdb1, here it is a devdb1, and node 2, it's a devdb2, right? That's the expected one. So once you set this one, I'm going to do SQL plus /s sysdba. I connected to instance 1. Select instance underscore name from $, instance. So devdb1. And now if I run the same select this SQL query on the other node, and if I run the same command here, instance name from the other node, I have connected to devdb2, right? Whichever server you logged in, you're going to connect to that particular instance in case of RAC. In case of standalone, again, ps-f grep smon, testdb is your instance name, owner is Oracle, log into that Oracle user, .orinv, and they're going to give that instance name testdb. Once you're done, just validate env pipeline grep capital vara. So they're going to give you SID testdb, SQL plus SSDBA. You're going to connect. I'm going to run that SQL plus SSDBA on the testdb here. And if I run the select query for testdb, your instance name is same. Testdb. Your instance name is testdb and select name from $, database. So your database name is also testdb. Your DB name and instance name are both are matching here because it's a standalone. If I run this DB name on this RAC node 1, it says devdb. If I go to RAC node 2, if I run the DB name, it says devdb. It means this devdb is a common database. What you can see here, devdb is a common database, but you have instance 1, devdb instance 1, devdb instance 2, two instances running under host 1 and host 2. Right? That's your understanding. And now these two servers, these are two servers, host node 1 and your node 2. These are the two servers are mapped to a common storage in order to store, like in order to store this database on the common storage. Sorry for that. Okay, this database is stored under this common storage. This is your storage. Whatever you're seeing here, this is your storage. This storage is attached to your node 1, that is your host 1, and it's your host 2. The same storage is attached to host 2, so that both the instances devdb1 and devdb2 are able to access that storage. How I can show that storage here? If I can exit from here, and if I can exit from node, both the node 1 and node 2, and I can set the environment to +ASM. And don't worry about this +ASM and whatever it is, we'll discuss in detail in our regular classes. Oracle ASM list disks. If I do Oracle ASM list disk, I have ASM disk 1, disk 2, disk 3, disk 4, followed by D1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I have so many disks attached on this particular node 1. And if I run the same command on the other node, +ASM2, if I run over here, same thing, ASM disk 1, 2, 3, D1 to D11. So these are your disks. That's a mandatory. You should have a disks mapped to your all the cluster nodes. So that that's the reason your database will be accessible from all the servers in case of RAC. Right. One more quickly, I can show you how we can validate your RAC database. I'm going to set back the same devdb1. There's a command srvctl status database -d and your DB name. You have to give the DB name, not the instance name. srvctl status database -d is the DB name. That's a devdb. It says instance 1, instance 2 running under node 1 and node 2. So that indicates this is your RAC database. If I run the same command for the test DB, exit srvctl status database -d test DB. So here you see the difference. It says database is running because it's a single node, standalone database. Your test DB, there's nothing called instance 1, instance 2, instance 3. Your DB name is your instance name. It is just saying database is running. Right. So that's a difference between your standalone or the RAC. The moment you see your SRCTL config or the SRCTL status, they're going to give you whether you are working on a RAC database or the standalone database. Right. Any questions, guys, so far on the standalone versus the RAC?
Yeah, in standalone, you have run SRVCTL, right? Is it configured with ASM or normal storage, the local file system?
That is ASM. Your SRCTL works only for ASM.
Yeah, okay.
Right. So that's a
in
simple
RAC,
understanding.
Sir, in RAC, ASM is compulsory or not, sir?
It is not a mandatory thing. Again, you need to understand first what is, there are three concepts here. If I try to explain here, you will get confused. What is ASM? What is clusterware? What is your GI? So first you need to understand ASM and clusterware and GI. ASM, again, you have ASM instance and plus ASM storage. ASM means your ASM instance and your ASM storage. And clusterware is a clusterware software, and GI is a grid infrastructure, combination of your ASM and clusterware. So once we start explaining in our regular classes what is ASM instance and what is ASM storage. And now your further questions will come drill down to, can I have ASM instance mandatory? Or can I have my ASM storage mandatory? Or can I have my both ASM instance and ASM storage mandatorily? Or I should not have my both ASM instance and ASM storage? Can I have a separate other shared storage? Yes, you can have the separate state storage. Yeah, these are the different questions you'll get into once you understand what is ASM instance, what is ASM storage, what is clusterware, and what is grid infrastructure. Once you go deep dive on these all three concepts, and you will be able to understand, you will be able to answer your questions by your own. But in simple words, for your questions, ASM is not a mandatory. Without ASM also, I can set up my RAC. Right.
If I don't use ASM, will that SRVCTL command work?
Yes.
Still it work, okay.
Right. Right. That's for the standalone versus RAC, what we understood. Now quickly, installation process. So in order to do a cluster setup, you need GI, you need a DB, and GI, I can say GI home and DB home and database. So your GI home, assuming that it's a 2-node rack. I'm dealing with the 2-node rack. Just stick to only 2-node rack, not a 3 or 4. It's a 2-node rack. What we are seeing it here on this host node 1 and host node 2. This is your 2-node rack. So to do the installation, you need to install GI home on node 1 and node 2, both the nodes. Both the nodes you need to do GI home installation. If I do cat etc or tab, this is my GI home on node 1 and as well as on node 2. If I can go here, node 1, ls. This is my GI software, grid software. If I can go to node 2, again, now I'm doing a cat etc or tab. You should be aware of what is or tab because it's a basic your database fundamental architecture. So if I can go to node 2, this grid home, that's my grid home. The grid software is installed on both the nodes. How we are going to install the grid software? We have something called grid setup .sh. So using this GI software, you're gonna download this GI software. Once you download the GI software from Oracle, you're going to download the GI software. We use this grid setup.sh tool to install my grid. Right. DB home. Again, DB home is also on both the nodes. If you can see here, instance 2, this is my DB home. LS, I can see all the DB home software, database home software on node 2. If I can go to node 1, again, instance 2, the DB home is here. If I can go to that instance, again, this is my DB home software. So you should have your DB home software. This is my DB home software, where I installed database home. I installed here the database home software, and the same thing. How we are going to install? Sorry, let's put this one here. Instead of GI grid infrastructure software, I'm going to download DB software. I need to download this DB software, and instead of grid setup here, I'm use something called run installer. So this is a tool. Run installer is a tool. I'm going to use this run installer tool to install my database software. Grid setup.sh is a tool. I can use this grid setup.sh tool to install my grid software on GI home and the DB home on both the nodes, node 1 and node 2 if it's a 2 node, if it's a 4 node, and all the 4 nodes. And next step will be create database. In this case, my database is DevDB. So DevDB create database. I create not on both the nodes. I can, this is my database name DevDB, create from any one node. I can create from any one node, from node 1 or from node 2, I can create my DevDB. Once I create my DB from any one node, it's gonna creates 2 instances on all nodes. You're gonna create, I think I can say it creates multiple instances on all nodes. If I connect to node 1, I create my DevDB, it will automatically create instance 1 and instance 2 on both the nodes. And if I can connect to node 2, I create my database, automatically it's going to create the instance on both the nodes. So if there is no hard and fast rule, you have to do it from node 1. You can do it from any node in your cluster. If it's a 4th node, you can do it from any one node. Connect to that node and create a database, it will automatically create on all the nodes. Right. So for that, I'm going to use something called tool DBCA, database configuration assistant. That will be on the particular Oracle home /bin and /dbca. So connect to node 1, go to this location bin, run this DBCA. We're going to ask you what database do you want to create. I want to create DevDB. Which all node you want to create? I want to create a node 1, 2, 3, 4. You have to give that node name. We're going to create. It will be available on both the nodes. If I can go to node 1, LL, and you can see your DBCA is here. And if I go to node 2, LL, and again DBCA in node 2, you can connect to any node and create your database. Right? These are the 3 tools we use it for the installation of my 2 node or 3 node or 4 node cluster where 2 node rack setup. Right? Grid setup, run installer, and the DBCA. Right. So this is a minimal 3 tools we use it for installation, but in order to achieve this installation, there are so many pre-tools, your run Cluffy and your SSH connections, your network connection check, your Cluffy verify. There are so many other tools we use it. Again, we'll discuss it during our actual setup or installation. But in simple words, in order to do a setup of your 2 node or 4 node rack or from clusterware, you are going to use the 3 simple tools: the grid setup, run installer, and the DBCA. Right. So that is your simple understanding for the installation processes for the standalone versus rack. In case of standalone, what happens? If you have ASM or with ASM or without ASM, so there are 2 concepts here. This is your rack, well and good. This 2 node rack, it holds good. When it comes to standalone, in standalone, the name itself suggests it's a single instance, only one node, one server. We have with ASM and we have with ASM and we have without ASM. So standalone you can do with ASM and without ASM. Without ASM, that indicates what happens. Without ASM, what indicates? Without ASM, you don't want ASM. It will be just like this. DBOM directly will install DBOM. It is only on one node. It's only one node. There's nothing called multiple nodes here. Only one server. We can call it as a node or server or host. It's just a Linux server. And database at DevDB we can create from not any, from single node. It's only one node here. It creates not a multiple, a single instance on that node. Wherever you connected and ran, it's only two steps. For the standalone, without ASM, you will just download the DB software and use this run installer tool, and you will install the database. And you're going to use the DBCA. It'll create a single, create on the single node. It creates a single instance on that node. These are the two steps. But in case of with ASM, we're going to do these two steps. But before doing these steps, we're going to do this GI installation. Grid home, both nodes, not on both nodes, it's only node 1. So you're going to do only on node 1. You're going to download the GI software, use this grid tool, and you're going to install the grid software on the only node 1. It's a single node. So just to show you example for the single node, I have this one here. Let's see quickly, I can show you here. Wait a second, it is okay. Let's go here. Right. So if I can connect over here, if I do ps-ef grep smon, and you can observe here db2, and if I can go here, ps-ef grep smon, and I'll get this output here. Right. So let's go back here. The first in standalone with ASM, the ps-ef grep smon, it says plus ASM and test DB. It's a standalone single server with ASM. I don't see any ASM instance 1 or 2 or 3, and you don't see any database instance 1, 2, 3. Right. So this is your standalone server with ASM and the database. And next go to without ASM. That is this server here. ps-ef grep smon. If I take this output here, this is not output. I'll remove this one. Right. This one here, ps-ef grep smon, it has only database. There is no ASM here. That is your standalone without ASM. In case of RAC, if I do ps-ef grep smon or the pmon on node 1 and node 2, the commands varies here. ps-ef grep smon. If I run this command here on node 1, and remove this one, you have a plus ASM1 and DevDB1, but whereas here only ASM, there's no 1 and 2 here because it's a standalone. In case of RAC, you can see plus ASM 1, 2, 3 like that. If I can go to second node of my RAC instance here, RAC server here, right, ps-ef grep smon, and if I can copy it and then put it over here. Right. Let's understand all three in one single screenshot here. Expand it a little bit. Right. So your 2-node rack, you have node 1, node 2. You have ASM1 and ASM2, DevDB instance 1, DevDB instance 2. That clearly understands it's a 2-node rack setup. And if I go to standalone with ASM,
I can do PS-F grep SMON. It says only plus ASM. There's no 1 or there's no 2 here. So that indicates it's a standalone ASM server. And I can see database, just a test DB. And without ASM, if I do PS-F grep SMON, it's just a database name. There's no ASM at all here, right? So that is a simple understanding between your installation process for the rack, for the standalone, in the standalone with ASM and without ASM. Right. So now going further, quickly we can talk about the CRD files. CRD files, control, redo, and data files. Very important. I can quickly touch base that one and then we can stop it for today. Let's see here. So we'll take a 2 scenarios. One is standalone and one is a rack. Right. This is my standalone. Right. And then this is my rack. So as I say, it will be running with ASM or without ASM. It will be your plus ASM is running here and followed by your DB, or can go with the dev DB is running over here. And you have your plus ASM1 on node 1. I think this is your server. This is your just a server. That's a single server. Here it will be your server 1, node 1, or the host 1. It will be your server 2, node 2, or host 2, whatever you can call it as. So here it will be plus ASM2, your ASM1, ASM2, 2 ASM instances, and here just ASM instances. And here you have dev, dev db1 instance 1, and you have dev db2 instance 2 running. And here dev db1, and you can say this map it to your storage, your disks. Your disk may be coming from anywhere. This is your storage. And your database will be here, dev db database. So your dev db on this, these are the disk for just understanding, and your instance is running here. And you have instance here, and you have a disks here, disk 1, disk 2, and disk 3. And make sure that in order to set up a rack, we're going to explain in details. This disk 1 is connected to node 1 and 2, and this disk 2 is connected to node 1 and 2, and this disk 3 is connected to node 1 and 2, so that you can install your database on this disk here, because these are the common disks, your dev db. So this database means what I said, these are the physical files which will be residing under your storage. So coming to CRD files, so any database, let's say you have your control file, and you have your redo files, you have your archive files, and you have your data files. Right? These are your important things. Any database, in order to run, again, you should have that database basics understanding. Control files, redo log files, archive log files, and data files. Right? And also there are so many other files, your database alert log, or trace files, and all those things. So these are the things we need to talk about that. In the data files, again, you can make it as a, in this data files, I can divide them. System, sysaux, and undo. Temp is not mandatory. Let's go with that one. Undo. Let's go with only system sysaux. Undo.
User.
Users is again application related. No need to worry. Okay. Some apps or user related. Again, temp, I'm not going to talk about that. So we'll talk later. Again, these are few of the examples of your data files. Coming to control files, it's just only one control file, and which will be available on that particular database. Coming to rack control file, again, this is a single control file which will be on the SAID. It will be accessible for instance 1 and instance 2. It is SAID. I can say, put it here, shared, SAID between instances, and non-SAID. SAID I can give right mark, non-SAID I can give cross mark. So control file, whether it is a shared or non-shared in the rack instances. You have two node instances, whether you want to share your control file between the instances or not. Your control file in case of rack always shared, right? Your control files will be in a common location, which will be shared between both instances. That's a shared. Redo logs. Redo logs are not shared. You have your redo log 1 for your instance 1. You have your redo log 2 for your instance 2. Redo logs are not shared in case of rack. Archive logs. Archive logs are shared. Your redo log 1 is going to generate archive log. Both are like accessible for both instances. With the help of these redo logs, we're going to generate this archive logs. Your redo logs are not shared, but archive logs are shared between both instances. And coming to data file, your system, sysocs, and any application related user files are all shared data files. I can say just a data files. These data files are accessible for instance 1 and instance 2. These are shared. Whereas undo, it is not shared. You have your undo 1, redo and undo 1, and redo and undo 2. This undo 2 is for instance 2, undo 1 is for your instance 1. These are not shared. Undo is not shared. Remaining all data files are shared. And your alert log is not a database specific. That's why we can call it as CRD, control, redo, and data files. Alert log is an instance specific. So if I have DevDB instance, I have one alert log here. I have DevDB instance 1, I have alert log here. And I have DevDB instance 2, alert log 2 here. So your alert log, trace files, TRM file, listener files are all instance specific. So all will be having their individual log files or the trace files. Right? That's a simple understanding here, how your CRD files, control, redo, data files will be distributed in case of RAC or in case of standalone. In case of RAC, control file is shared, redo logs are not shared, archive logs are shared, and your data files, inside data files, your system, sysocs, undo, sorry, system, sysocs, users or application related, any other data files are shared, but whereas undo is not shared. And alert log, trace files, listener log files, your cluster log files are all those log files are instance specific. They will be having their own individual log files. Whereas your standalone, there's nothing called shared or non-shared. Everything will be available in your database and your instance. Your control, redo, archive, data files, alert log, all are one-to-one mapping here. All right. So that's a brief about your CID files and understanding. Let's take this RAC architecture. Probably I'll take it in tomorrow, followed by RAC architecture and startup sequence. And we can stop it for today. We are left with 10 more minutes. I'm happy to take any questions or queries. Anyone has it before we wind up for today.
Yeah, shared storage will connect to database instance or ASM instance.
You are not going to connect to database instance or ASM. It's going to connect to your servers. Your shared storage will connect it to your both the servers. On the top of shared server, we're going to create my ASM and database.
Okay, sure.
Malik, is there any way, like actually this question was asked to me in interview, like is there any way, like if you have 7 node logs, and he said, the interviewer said, how will you check the alert logs of other nodes as well, like in case of multiple racks. So if you have 7 nodes, he said that you will visit each and every alert log, or is there any way if you can see the alert log of database from other databases or other nodes as well from one node?
You just understand, is alert log shared or non-shared?
It's a non-shared.
Right. Then you have to go to that particular node and check it out. Right. So if you understand this concept, what I just explained, then that answers your queries.
Yeah, actually, I was just trying to see if there is an internal database view where we can see any errors for overall cluster. Okay, no issues.
Yeah, there are many internal views. You can connect to instance 1 and you can query it, but that is not the ideal way to manage your alert log. You have to go to that particular alert log and tail it via it and then understand what issues, what errors. And there's a simple answer. You have to go to your ADR CI and you can get the alert log and alert log output ADR CI, the tool, and that's going to give you centralized storage for your all the alerts. So you can get it out in one place from single node. But the simple answers, what you need to convey him, alert log, of course, is the non-shared. I have to go to that particular node and tail it or via it and understand the issue for the more details. And there are some database views. I can connect to any one instance and I can get the alerts. And that is not the ideal way to manage the database administration. And also there's other method, ADRCI, go to ADRCI home and get the centralized alert. That's a centralized command tool. You can get the alert from all the nodes. That's also possible. But that's not how we do familiarly. We have to go to each node and then tail the logs as a DBA best practice. Right.
Sir, there is any topic on performance tuning of cluster resources or processes?
Yes, that will be covered.
On grid level?
Right.
Okay.
Right. Any questions, guys, before we close it for today? Tomorrow, we're going to cover about these many topics. What we covered so far is introduction and the course curriculum, course duration, course timing, and how we're going to access the, our materials from the Google Drive. And again, as I said, these are lifetime accessible materials. You can use it anytime. And in fact, no restriction on these recordings or the material. You can in fact download it to your own laptop. No restrictions or no conditions. And we have a dedicated WhatsApp group for each batch, and we'll be discussing each and every topic, each and every questions queries in particular WhatsApp group. Again, those WhatsApp groups are lifetime accessible, and you can post any questions and queries along with this particular training. And after the training also, you are working on any client and you need any help on a particular task, use our WhatsApp group and we are ready to help on that.
Sir, I have a query related to payment. Can I pay through credit card?
You can ping me on my WhatsApp number.
Okay.
We'll talk further on that payment method, how we can do, whether the bank
Okay,
transfer,
sure,
whether
sure.
it's Google Pay, Phone Pay, or credit card. That payment method, we can discuss it one-to-one. Yeah, this is my number, or drop me an email, or you
Okay.
can go ahead and register for the two links.
Fine.
Already pinged here in the chat, so I can connect with each one of you who are interested. Right. I already said these details in the chat here. If anyone wanted to continue with the course, feel free to ping me on my WhatsApp or drop me an email or call me. We'll take it further for the payment process or the registration process. Right. With that, if no questions on the today's topics or the demonstration, whatever we just showed, or any questions on the course durations or the timing, feel free to ping me or call me on my cell number or WhatsApp number, or ping me here right away or clarify your questions. If not, then we are happy to close or good to close for today. All right. All right, guys. Thanks everyone. Thanks for your time. Let's connect tomorrow with the same timing for the further discussion. Thank you all.
Thanks, Malik.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.